A driver who hasn't touched a NASCAR truck in over 20 years. A legend who walked away from Cup Series racing almost a decade ago. And a 54-year-old racer who's about to tackle one of the most dangerous tracks in motorsports. Yes, Tony Stewart is returning to competitive NASCAR racing, and he's not easing back into it with some quiet mid-season race at a short track. This man is going straight to Daytona International Speedway, under the lights, in front of the biggest crowd the Truck Series sees all year. Let's get into why this is absolutely massive.
Ryan Blaney has won his way into the championship.
A great day for Kyle Larson.
7th career win in his 100th.
Joey Logano takes the checkered flag. Hell yeah, boys!
Colic Racing and Ram Trucks have been teasing us for weeks about putting some serious star power in their 5th truck for select races this season. The rumours started floating around a few weeks back that Tony Stewart might be one of those names, and honestly a lot of people thought it was just internet speculation. Chris Rice, who's involved with the team, never really denied anything when people asked, but he also didn't confirm it. Well, the wait is over because today it became official. Tony Stewart will be behind the wheel of the Ram number 25 truck for the season-opening Craftsman Truck Series race at Daytona International Speedway. Now let me tell you why this is such a huge deal. Tony Stewart hasn't raced anything NASCAR related in almost 10 years. His final Cup Series season was back in 2016, and after that, he pretty much walked away from the sport. There were some rumours floating around in 2020 that he might make a one-off appearance in an Xfinity Series race, but obviously COVID threw a wrench in those plans, and it never happened. But here's the really crazy part. The last time Smoke actually drove a truck in a NASCAR Truck Series race was over 20 years ago in 2005. That's right, 2 full decades have passed since this man competed at this level. Here's what makes this even more interesting. Tony Stewart never won the Daytona 500 in his Cup Series career. That doesn't mean he struggled at the world centre of racing. Far from it, actually. This man has won just about everything else you can win at Daytona. He's a 7-time winner in what used to be called the Xfinity Series season opener at Daytona. In fact, there was a stretch in the late 2000s and early 2000s where he won 6 out of 7 consecutive Daytona openers. That's dominance. He's also won the Summer Cup Series race at Daytona, the Coke Zero Sugar 400 4 different times. On top of that, he's got multiple Daytona Duel wins under his belt, and even a Budweiser shootout victory. The man has won at Daytona on Thursdays, he's won there on Saturdays, and now he's going for a Friday night victory to add to his trophy case. What's really fascinating about this comeback is where Tony Stewart has been for the past few years. After 2024, he stepped away from Stewart Haas Racing, and the team became just Haas again. Tony seemed completely fed up with NASCAR's next-gen era, and openly criticised NASCAR's competition department on multiple occasions. A lot of people thought that was it, that he was done with NASCAR for good. He went off and helped run the Superstar Racing Experience, got heavily involved in drag racing with his NHRA Top Fuel team, and even got married recently. The guy seemed happy doing his own thing away from stock car racing. But here's what you need to understand about Tony Stewart. This man is one of the most versatile race car drivers of all time. There are very few people in the history of motorsports who are better than Tony Stewart behind the wheel. The man has won an IndyCar, he's won 3 NASCAR Cup Series championships, he's won at every type of track you can think of, and now he's even winning in Top Fuel drag racing. At 54 years old, most people would be thinking about slowing down, maybe enjoying retirement, playing some golf. But not Tony Stewart. This guy is still out here challenging himself with new things, pushing his limits, and proving that age is just a number when you've got that much talent and drive. Drag racing is still relatively new for him, but he's already found success there as a Top Fuel winner. Now he's coming back to NASCAR, a sport he hasn't competed in for nearly a decade, to race in the Truck Series at one of the most unpredictable and dangerous tracks on the schedule. Daytona is a beast. Those high banks create speeds that can lead to massive wrecks in the blink of an eye, and the Truck Series is especially wild there because the competition is so tight and drivers are willing to take huge risks. For a 54-year-old to step into that environment after being away for so long shows an incredible amount of confidence and courage. So the big question everyone's asking is this: does Tony Stewart have one more magical Daytona performance left in him? Can a guy who hasn't raced a truck in 20 years jump back in and compete with drivers who've been doing this week in and week out? The man's racecraft is elite, his understanding of superspeedway. Racing is deep, and his competitive fire clearly hasn't dimmed one bit. Will he win? That's hard to say because Daytona is so unpredictable, and there are a lot of talented drivers in that truck series field. But will he put on a show? Absolutely. Will people be watching? You better believe it. The Friday night truck series opener at Daytona has always been must-see television. It's one of the most exciting races of the entire NASCAR season across all three series. The energy is electric, the racing is aggressive, and you never know what's going to happen. Now you throw Tony Stewart into that mix, and the hype just went through the roof. While we're talking about NASCAR news, there's actually some other big stuff happening right now that's worth mentioning. Off-season testing at North Wilkesboro Speedway kicked off recently with more than a dozen teams and drivers on site. They're testing a variety of new things, including some new electronics and what's being called the first big test of 750 horsepower in the next-gen short track package. This is a pretty significant development because NASCAR has been trying to improve the racing product at short tracks, and more horsepower is definitely a step in the right direction. According to reports from people at the track, they're also testing new springs and various aerodynamic changes. Goodyear deserves a lot of credit for the improved short track racing we saw last year when they brought softer tyre compounds to many races. We saw more variability, more passing, and better overall competition. But if NASCAR can continue to improve the car itself on top of those tyre improvements, that's even better news for fans. The horsepower increase means Cup Series cars will now run 750 horsepower instead of 670 at all tracks under 1.5 miles in length, as well as all road courses. 15 drivers are at North Wilkesboro for this test, representing all the chartered teams, and it's giving some new driver and crew chief combinations their first real opportunity to work together. Tyler Reddick suggested a couple of years ago that it would take over 1,000 horsepower in the next-gen car to make a real, tangible difference that drivers and fans could clearly feel. So while 750 is definitely a nice improvement and a step in the right direction, it's probably not going to be the silver bullet that completely transforms short-track racing. But every little bit helps, and it shows that NASCAR is listening to feedback and trying to make things better. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay updated on all the latest NASCAR news and racing stories, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.